We have 3 samples here. We have a sample of unretted straw. As you would have it, it's ripe, it's mature, it's yellow. We have some straw that was left on the ground for a little while, and you can see the color change, and it's partly retted. And retting means that microbes have started growing on it. They're starting to rot it, but they haven't rotted it very much. And they always rot from the outside in, and the fiber's on the outside layer. So we want them to rot it just enough that they dissolve the pectin that holds the fiber to the rest of the stem, and then we want to stop it. And we also have a sample of fully retted straw, where the microbes have certainly done their work in getting rid of all the pectin glue that holds the fiber to the rest of the stalks. If you were testing to see if it's fully retted and you want to look at the quality, we could break off some. I have a little handful of straw, and I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to press my thumb against my other finger. So basically I'm trying to make a right angle bend, but I'm going to do it really quickly, and I'm just going to go, instead of going like that, I'm just going to keep pressing my thumb, and you hear it breaking, there's sound, and you look what's falling out. So the chives are the hard inner parts, and when I press them, they're very brittle. And they turn into little pieces. Mm-hmm. The fiber is very flexible, so it doesn't break. And that's been a technique for separating flax fiber for thousands of years. Somebody figured that out a long time ago. Once it's retted, the hard parts fall out. And I'm going to do this side. The fiber is flexible and the hive is not. So the chive breaks into little bits and the fiber doesn't. So in industrial processing of flax, they would call this scutching. So this first part is breaking, and the next part is just scraping. And I can get all the chive off because I'm holding it here. And in a scutching system, it's the same. This is helped by a big belt, and there's some paddles that paddle it and they clean it. So you see all the chives are gone. And here the chives are gone, and some of the loose, short, weaker fibers have gone. And now, how do we tell if it's strong and if it's fine in diameter? And let's take the equivalent of roughly 2 or 3 stems. If I take too much fiber in my hand for the next step, it'll be too strong. If I take not enough fiber, it will be too weak. So try to take roughly the equivalent of 2 or 3 stems, or roughly about that much. It's less than a pencil, I don't know, but about that much. And first we're going to test for strength. So we're going to wrap it around our finger this way and wrap it around this way, and we're going to give it a snap, and we hope that there's a sound. If there's a sound, it indicates that there's a lot of strength. If there's no sound, it indicates that there isn't strength, the fibers are over-retted, and they're not very good for fine textiles. Hear the sound, the pop? Then go to the end where you popped it, and we're going to look for fineness. Fineness refers to how easy does the fiber divide into ultimate fibers. So I'm going to take my wonderful fingernail here, and I'm going to hold it at this end here, and I'm going to scrape, and as I scrape I'm going to turn it, keep rotating, so I try to scrape every fiber at least once or twice. And I'm going to do it a given number of times, let's say 10 times. And I want to always do it a given number of times, because if I scrape one 50 times and another one 2 times, the 50-time one would be, of course, a lot finer, but not because of the characteristic of the fiber, but because of the mechanical action of my fingernail. So I'm only doing it 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I'm going to try to fan out these fibers, and it's best on where it's black surface. And we fan them out, and what we want to look for is something that looks like split hairs. And so we can see some there.
Yep.
Those are the tiniest ones that you can hardly see, are called ultimate fibers. They're similar to cotton in diameter, and that's their kind of the basic fiber that was made by the plant. When the plant grew, those little fibers got stuck together into bundles. And so this to the naked eye looks like that's one big fiber. No, it's actually a fiber bundle. And here's fiber bundles and here's fiber bundles. But you see the fiber bundles have started to separate. And if I had all of them separate after 10 strokes, it would mean that that fiber is too fine. And when I put it through processing systems, it'll break up too quickly and I won't have strength and I won't be able to make a good yarn. On the other hand, if there was only bundles and no little fibers, that fiber would be very strong. The only kind of thing I could make would be like a really big yarn or a little rope. It would be too coarse and too underretted. So we want an optimum in between. This one is actually a little slightly overretted. I can see it's a little bit too much fineness, but there's always degrees. It's never a yes or no. It's always a degree. This is just slightly overretted. So I have looked at the fineness, I looked at the strength, we looked at the degree of retting. Those are probably the most important 3 factors in looking at if I have good straw or not. Other factors we can look at, and now we can go back to some of these. So one of the factors we can look at here is how even are the stems and what's the average diameter. So these particular stems are almost all very even. They almost look like they were made in a factory. So that means the fiber that's going to come from them is going to be very consistent and very even. If some of the stems were big and some were small, they are not going to ret evenly and the fiber diameters are not going to be even. So this is a very good sign right here that this has the potential to give us very good fiber because they're very similar. Now, these are also quite thin. And normally the thinner the stems, the finer the fiber will be. One of the things that makes the fiber very even, the stems very even, is depth of seeding. If we have even depth of seeding, we almost always get very even plants. If we have uneven depth of seeding, we get big and small ones. Or if we try to put too much seed in a little narrow furrow, we also tend to get uneven stems. In our second sample of straw, which is half retted, we can tell quickly by the color that it's no longer nice and yellow, but it's not a nice gray color either. It's halfway in between and it's half retted. And let's look at the quality of that. So we'll take some stems and we'll try to break them just like we did with the retted ones. I'll take my finger and so I could bend like that at right angles. Start, and I can press with my thumb and see the chive's falling out. It's partly retted, but it doesn't fall out as quickly as it did with the retted one.
Right. No, definitely not. Yeah.
And the closer I keep my thumb to each time I press, the smaller the chives will be and the more likely they'll fall out. So it's almost like I'm going pressing really closely. Now in an industrial situation, this is usually done with big fluted rollers, and the straw goes over fluted rollers over and over, and they bend and bend. But I'm doing the same thing with my thumb and finger, and now I'm scraping it. And so in industrial, that's called scutching, where you're scraping the fiber off.
Right.
And you see the dust flying, and when you process flax, you can easily get 2 or 3% dust. And you think, oh, that's not very much. But imagine if for every ton you process, that means you're getting 10 kilos of dust. Okay, so I've scotched it actually with my fingernail, and you see it came out actually really clean.
Yeah.
So it is partly retted.
Yes.
Okay, now that's a little bit thicker than I would like, so I'm going to take a little bit away. And I'm going to wrap it around my finger. And will we hear a snap? Will we not hear a snap? You could tell. That was, I had to pull hard.
I had to pull harder.
That was stronger, and that's what you would expect.
Yeah.
Because it isn't retted as much.
Right. So it's
Okay, so if I was making a rope or something, or a geotextile where I really want strength, this is much better than that.
Right.
But what about fineness?
Right.
Okay, so let's do the same thing with my thumb. And I'm going to hold it here, and I'm going to scrape 10 times. So 1,
As we twist.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And let's fan it out, something dark, and look for those tiny little fibers.
I see a couple.
Oh, maybe on this side.
Yeah, maybe exactly.
A little bit.
They're pretty scarce.
And
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
very top.
A
Yes.
little bit
Yeah.
thicker.
And that's what we would expect. That fiber is obviously very strong. And so, you know, which is better quality? Tell me what you want. If it's a geotextile, if it's a rope, okay, this is actually better than that. It won't pay as much because the textile people always can pay more than the rope people, for example, or the plastic people. But for the buyer of maybe it's a plastic composite, maybe it's a geotextile, for him, this is better than that one.
Right.
Now let's just for being crazy, let's try a little bit of this, the unretted,
The unread. With seeds. though.
with seeds. And again, I'll press with my thumb. And then we'll take our thumb and we'll make indentations close together. And we'll do that over and over. And for one thing, I can notice there's almost no sound.
Yeah.
But remember, those two I was able to get clean by just pressing with my thumb.
I don't think you could do the same with this one. I mean, I don't, yeah.
Well, that's why you do retting. You know,
Exactly.
I sure hope it doesn't. I sure hope it doesn't come apart.
Right.
See, we have some breakage, but now you see some of the. If I press too hard, the fiber comes
fibers
off
coming
with the shive.
Yeah.
So another technique when it's really hard is you can kind of vibrate your fingernails or fingers back and forth. Try to loosen the shive off of the fiber. You can see here how tightly the shive, even though they're broken, they still hang on to the fiber because the pectin, which is like the glue between them, is still all there. And then pinching it, we see I'm breaking some of the fiber. And what I'm trying to do is make the shive really tiny so it falls out before it holds onto the fiber. Well, we'll try with, this is kind of rough here. We'll try to break it. So do we hear a snap or not?
No.
That one I did. But I know it's very strong.
Yeah.
Scrape the end here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And let's fan it out. And do we find any fine fibers?
No.
No. Not really.
No, maybe one
Maybe a
tiny one or
couple,
something.
yeah.
But and again, that's what you would expect. It's not retted. Those are kind of the differences between retted, half retted, and under retted, and that's a very quick way to tell the quality.